I would like to thank Craig Jarrett for sending me this story, and look at who is back in the news again. Chris Cantwell, also known as that crybaby ass punk who made that video around the time of that Charlottesville riot last year. He is back in the goddamn news again. And why is he back in the news, you're probably asking? Well, he made a post of some sort where he says he threatens to take the law into his own hands like the Pittsburgh shooter. I don't even know why they allow this piece of shit to even be out on the street. But apparently he's back behind bars and this is his most recent mugshot. But that's the threats that he made. I swear the privilege that white people have in this establishment is astounding. Don't even bother asking a white person about their privilege because many of them are going to deny it. It's rare you'll find one that will admit that their white privilege is real. And the reason why I say he has white privilege because if a black person said they're going to take the law into their own hands to get revenge against people like Dylan Roof or a host of others who have done us wrong, curtains. They just sent someone there to arrest and put him in jail. They'll probably send every law enforcement the government has at its disposal, including the military, to come and take that black person out. But let me go ahead and read this article coming from Raw Story. In a since-deleted social media post, crying Nazi Chris Cantwell threatened that white nationalists may take the law into our own hands, like Pittsburgh synagogue shooter Robert Bowers or Emmanuel AME Zion shooter Dylan Roof. You got to be careful. Listen to what he said. Like Robert Bowers at the synagogue or Dylan Roof at the black church. That means that it sounds like they want to target either another synagogue or another predominantly black church. I swear these white so-called nationalists or supremacists, the enemies that they create in their head are just crazy. The only enemies that they have are their own. They are their own enemy. But they ain't gonna go after their own though. Mike reported that Cantwell made the post in response to news coverage of the trial for James Alex Fields, the man who drove his car through a crowd during a deadly Unite the Right rally in 2017 and allegedly killed activist Heather Heyer and injured several others. Cantwell referenced Dino Capuzzo, an FBI agent he claimed to have spoken and given information about anti-fascists. If you would not act upon the information we provide to you, then what other choice do we have but to take the law into our own hands? The man charged for spraying tear gas at counter-protesters during the Charlottesville rally wrote, "How am I any better than Dylan Roof or Robert Bowers if my peaceful and lawful actions produce the catastrophe that awaits us all?" Cantwell has since deleted the post made earlier in the week, but Mike included a screenshot of it in his article about the crying Nazi and his apparent fixation on journalist and anti-fascist activist Molly Conger. Don't you know that whatever you put out onto the internet, it's there forever? The minute you hit that send button or whatever icon it is to make your message go through, it's there for good. Screenshot is real. And there's additional parts to his post. They just then included all. The next part he says, "For America to survive, we must address these issues, and if the government will not do so, the private sector will." Now this is this is why they need white identity extremists as a label. People like him. And have you noticed that ever since they created that fake ass BIE, black identity extremist, that more white people have been committing terroristic acts like crazy, yet they still won't call them a terrorist, but they'll say that they committed a terroristic act, but they won't call them a terrorist. Conger told Mike that Cantwell began referencing her in his Radical Agenda podcast earlier in 2018 after he filed a lawsuit against her friend and fellow activist Emily Gorsinski, a woman who accused him of pepper spraying her at the Charlottesville rally. His $1 million lawsuit against Gorsinski and another activist who said he pepper sprayed them was dismissed earlier in November. So this guy was bringing up a lawsuit against people that he wronged, and he actually thought it was going to go through. I swear, these so-called high IQ people are not playing with a full deck. Conger is now hosting her own podcast about Phil's trial in Charlottesville, reporting Cantwell appears to dislike. Dear Molly Conger, he wrote on a November 27th Gad post that was still up at press time. You will pay for your lies. The post linked to her podcast through the Charlottesville's WTJU. That sounds like a threat. Congress said it wasn't the first time Cantwell specifically threatened her, and that she has audio of him encouraging a caller to come to my house and rape me until I'm not gay anymore on his podcast from earlier in the year. In March or so, he spoke directly to me via his podcast and told me to slit my wrist. This guy is fucking insane, but it's not surprising that he feels this way. But you know what? I like my crazies and the racists out in the open. The journalist said she had in the past dismissed such threats as those of keyboard warriors, but has since changed her mind since Bowers, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter who also threatened her online, opened fire in the temple in October. I had seen Bowers post months before the shooting, even some threatening content directed at me. And because it didn't really stand out in the sea of hateful content around it, I dismissed it. And then he murdered 11 people, so I don't feel it's appropriate anymore to dismiss statements like the one Cantwell made last night. How is this any different from Bowers' last post before he committed the worst act of anti-Semitic violence in American history? Like I said, the guy is crazy and psychotic as hell, and they keep allowing him to have these posts on Twitter. And I have to really side-eye Twitter. I made a post, as y'all already know, but in case y'all don't and you're new, I made a post on Twitter maybe last month or so. I forget, it was I think it was in October, where I actually mentioned Tommy Lauren. I put the @ and put her name behind it, and I made sure she saw it. And I said, Tommy Lauren is a hood rat. I got a email, which my Twitter account is linked to, saying, due to the nature of your post, we have decided to ban your Twitter account for 12 hours. And that post was only up for about 10 minutes. That means that shit made its rounds in probably less that time for them to really review it, or they did review it. And anyway, for them to send me that email, it had to have gotten to her and probably some of the higher ups at Twitter. That was the first time I ever got that email from Twitter. And I have mentioned some people in the past and told them what I really thought about them before, and I've never received that email. But that one must have really triggered her, that I called her a hood rat. Many people have called her many other things on occasion, but I call her a goddamn hood rat in that, and I get banned for 12 hours. So from that day forward, it's like I don't mention, I put her in a hashtag, but that's as far as it's gonna go. But back to this guy here. This guy has made himself a living troll on the internet. He's been doing nothing but trolling people all the way dating back to that Charlottesville thing and him crying on camera, which was so over dramatic. It really was. I didn't believe them damn tears. The video made me laugh more than anything. But to be honest, that's how many of them really are. They soft as hell. They couldn't bust the grape in a fruit fight. But don't, like the woman said in this article, don't take these threats lightly. Don't just brush it off. Because he said something like, the synagogue, Robert Bowers, and Dylan Roof. It's almost the end of 2018. We got about a month left in the year. 2019 is going to be one hell of a year. I'm calling it now. So people better be prepared, because these individuals right here are ready to cut and let loose. Y'all let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. The links will be in the description. I'll talk to you in the next one.